Under normal circumstances, this would be a pretty erotic story I'm reading. But today, I just can't tear myself away. The pictures aren't bad. The woman has a slender body. A perfectionist might say her breasts are starting to sag, but that would just be a nag. The sex was quick, and truth be told, she looks like she's bored in the photos. His eyes were closed, probably thinking of someone sexier than her. When they were done, well, at least he was, they spoke. I'm pretty sure this baby is yours. I just couldn't imagine having his baby. While my husband and I were having sex, I wore a diaphragm. As soon as I started showing, I completely shut it off. He's such a nerd. I don't think he can go to the bathroom without consulting Google. Why did you marry him? In the hope that he'd turn out to be a good provider, which he does. I just can't take his crap anymore. And when do you plan on leaving him? After the baby is born. His work insurance is too good to give up. He won't like the name I put on the birth certificate, but that's his problem. Are you going to try to get him to pay child support? Why not? Hell, our state doesn't care at all who the real father is. If you become a husband when the oven door opens, ta-da, 18 years of child support. You think you'll get the house, too? Damn right! Plus utilities, cable, and alimony until you and I get married. Not bad shit, huh? And with what he'll give us, I'll be able to spend more time working on my paintings. That woman at the art gallery is telling everyone about my work. You're very talented with a paintbrush and other things, too. Come aboard, lover boy. There were more pictures, more talking, and more disrespect, but the damage was done. I closed the private investigator's report. The woman is my ex-wife, Colleen. The man is the man she works with, Robert Rocky Hackett, who got his degree last year and immediately ruined my marriage. Based on Colleen's comments, it looks like I was the only one who didn't realize from the beginning that my marriage was a sham. My name is Marty Thompson. I wish I could say I'm the most ordinary guy the world has ever seen, but that would be a lie. Growing up in a dysfunctional family, I seem to have learned to harbor my feelings. I can shut out the noise of someone swearing at me. I developed this skill as my mother became more grumpy by the day. My father left when I was 8 years old, and no one seems to know why, or want to lay it out plainly if they do. According to my mother, he was a cheating scumbag. As angry and bitter as she was, I wouldn't blame him for abandoning the family. No matter what I do, my mom always finds faults with it. I don't pay attention to her, and it pisses her off. When I met Colleen, she was a loving and caring person. Unfortunately for me, over time she began to emulate my mother. Because I allowed my mother to belittle me, Colleen decided she could be the dominant partner in our marriage. I am tired of this, and am looking for a way to end this joke marriage gracefully. I am 28, have been married to Colleen for 6 years, and do not want to start a family again. Colleen is very interested in starting a family, but it will be with someone else. I don't plan on sticking around. I have found a job and will be leaving for the coast in a few weeks without Colleen. Colleen is in her second trimester on family plans, and her belly is bulging out big time. Yeah, I'm a heartless bastard. I would agree with you if she was carrying my baby. She used a diaphragm when we had sex and claims it must not have worked. Our family came out earlier than expected. I assume, and this is just an assumption, that she took out the diaphragm for her lover. The asshole, a.k.a. Rocky Hackett, had his eye on Colleen the day he was hired. Same old cliché. Rocky does it. Rocky likes the way I do it. Rocky and I are working on a project together, and then there are the crickets. Instead of making wild accusations, I opted for the simplest solution. I installed a tape recorder in Colleen's car. One-sided conversations can only tell so much. Sure, he's working on Saturday. No, he leaves to play golf around 8. 10 o'clock then. Okay, love, you just have to listen to your baby's heartbeat. It's so good. Maybe he'll kick for you. I love you too. I needed proof, and I wanted to avoid jail time. She should pay. He should pay. But they weren't worth spending time behind bars. That really sucks. I hired an investigator whose report I just read. You have to wait 3 days to buy a gun. I waited, and now it's loaded with bullets. But I figured that was my backup plan since the spirits of karma made me a winning hand. Halloween is approaching, and there is a big zombie march at the fairgrounds. Colleen and a few of her co-workers decided to compete for the team prize. They held a meeting at our house. At the first meeting, instead of ordering like a servant, I concocted a meaningless task and went shopping. Colleen was furious, as I believe she wanted to impress her friends with how dominant she was. It didn't work out for her, and I found out about it when I got back around midnight. When I was informed of the second meeting, I put the newly purchased video baby monitor on the bookcase and locked myself in my bedroom. Watching the monitor, Rocky and Colleen acted like a married couple, touching each other, flirting and giggling. I listened to how they planned to dress, what makeup Rocky would bring back from China, and how things would unfold. Rocky planned to take a horse trailer and outfit it with a big, powerful black lantern. This was to make their glow-in-the-dark makeup look intimidating. The crooks were excited about their plans for how I would be dressed and how I would be treated. Apparently, I was to be grabbed and secured with chains, anything to make me look weak. Although I didn't record this encounter, I did write down some of the things they were going to use. Walking into the kitchen, I stood silently by the beer crate while the planners mapped out the third and final meeting. After going over the cosmetics they were going to use, my attention tried to be drawn to something about the classes they needed to take in college. You remember them from college. Why do I have to take this course? I will never benefit from what I learned from this professor, but now a red flag was looming in the back of my mind. I decided to do a little research online. I'm glad I did. Colleen is right in that I do thousands of Google searches when I'm on assignment. I made myself known at the last planning meeting. When your wife isn't sure whether to do something or not, the best way to change her mind is to forbid one of the options. Colleen, I firmly believe that using that eye paint is a bad idea. Why? Haven't you looked at the promotional pictures? I already did the test and I looked amazing. My eyes will be red and yours will be yellow. I refuse both the eye paint and the blood cream. I can't let you use them. This sent her into a rage. How dare her dominant spouse speak out against her in front of her friends? Marty, don't you dare tell me what to do. I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. I can't say I didn't try. On the night of the zombie walk, there were 5 people gathered around my house. Everyone was busy putting on their costumes. Maybe it's just me. There's just something weird about trying to look sexy in the guise of a dead and decomposing corpse. I couldn't suspend my disbelief, so I didn't bother putting on my costume. They were all putting on zombie makeup. Lots of gray face paint, fake blisters, and hanging chunks of flesh. Their tattered clothes were store-bought. Why make them when you can buy zombie costumes? I warned everyone not to paint their eyes. Colleen stomped over to me. It's showtime. I turned on the recorder. Marty, get a move on. We have to leave in 15 minutes. I'm not going if you insist on using that eye paint or blood cream. I think it's dangerous. What a wuss. You just spent $40 on a suit I bought for you. Colleen, I firmly believe that using that eye paint is a bad idea. Marty, enough already. I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. Rocky, not waiting for a response, joined in. Look, Marty, if Colin wants to look awesome as a zombie, just back off. No one asked for your opinion, asshole. Are you going to dye your eyes too? Actually, yes. Colleen and I would look great together. I turned to Colleen. Don't you see the risk you're taking? Marty, just walk away. Don't you see that I don't care what you think? Now leave me alone. Colleen, I understand that you and Rocky want to get your eyes painted for the party, but it's dangerous, and I insist on doing it my way. You will not do it. Excuse me? You're telling me what I can and can't do? Exactly. You'll look ridiculous and it's risky. That's enough. It's not going to happen. Really? You own me? What if I say I'm going to go there no matter what you say? Then I won't go to that party with you. So choose. Party with me at home or party without me. Colleen ignored me. Then they did it. Colleen and Rocky were still intent on painting their eyes. The other 3 walked by. All 5 of them used bloody cream. I shuddered. The eye paint and blood cream had been applied generously. Watching their mistake, I had mixed feelings. Their disrespect was about to bite them hard. Colleen acted defiantly. "You've given me a very easy choice, Marty. Have fun at home. Rocky, will you take me to the party?" Rocky, never missing a chance to praise the girl he was pleasuring, growled, "You bet I will. Let's get out of here and have some fun. Goodbye, loser." It was hard to keep from smirking, but I must have done pretty damn well. Colleen might have tripped me as they were leaving. Unfortunately, I wasn't upset at all. They deserved each other. And they drove off, dragging the trailer behind them, decorated in an attempt to win some meaningless prize. I turned off the recorder. It was 8 o'clock at night. Black lights are used for decorative and artistic lighting effects. In the back of my mind lingered the thought that my college chemistry class had been about ultraviolet radiation. Who would have thought that a commercial-grade black flashlight could generate waves of high-intensity ultraviolet light capable of causing dangerous chemical reactions? The violet glow comes from phosphors that trigger a chemical reaction. Until I started doing the research, I didn't realize anything about it. I didn't start looking for information on black lights. There was a warning label on eye paint and blood cream about the dangers of ultraviolet radiation. The packages clearly stated that they should only be used at night and avoid sources of ultraviolet light. They recommended using only incandescent bulbs with a low-wattage tungsten filament. Perhaps that's why Colin's test was successful. But the lovebirds didn't want to listen to my advice. They didn't need my advice. They didn't take my advice. The problem now is that they can never realize they were wrong. My cell phone rang around 9 p.m. I switched it to messages and then turned it on. "Marty, it's Trish. There's something wrong with Colleen. We took both her and Rocky to the trauma center since their eyes are burning. Call me." Maybe a little later, the second half of the soccer game would start, and I bet on the outcome. I uncorked another cup and ate a handful of crispy veggie. Instead of 10,000 calories in a handful, there were only 9,000. Healthy food and a nice flavor. The next message was about all 5 of them getting their blisters treated, where they used blood cream. I tried to warn them. A buzzing alerted me to the message. Another buzz, then another buzz, then another. By the time I checked, there were about a dozen zombie messages. The hospital needed insurance information. That wasn't going to happen. I was told to leave her alone. Maybe she should have gotten her purse. If you're going to be a big girl, you have to prepare like a big girl. At the end of the 4th quarter, my phone rang again. I pressed the red button. Less than a minute later, I had another voicemail. It could wait. After a cascade of belated timeouts, my online bet had migrated to the virtual stack of losing tickets. In TV commercials, everyone always wins. What am I doing wrong? I turned on my voicemail. "Marty, it's Trish again. There's really something wrong with Colleen. You should be here. Call me. We're at University Hospital. They won't tell me what's wrong with her, but it's serious. Please call me." Poor Trish. It wasn't her fault. It's a good thing she refused to use eye paint. Unfortunately for her, chemical burns from blood cream would leave permanent scars. During my time out, I packed several suitcases for the trip. A new job in San Diego was calling to me, but I didn't need to stay there for a week. After stuffing my car with my belongings, I drove west on I-70 and overnighted in Dillon. My attorney felt that living in another state would help when it came time to determine child support. Knowing I had a long drive ahead of me, I had breakfast at Denny's at dawn. I grabbed a Grand Slam and left with a couple large servings of coffee. Enjoying the ride, I decided to stop in Mesquite for a bite to eat. Thanks to some unexpected luck at the slot machines, I paid for a 3-night stay. Since I had no plans, a few days of flirting and gambling took my mind off the worries at home. I felt bad about leaving my phone on airplane mode, but I suspected the shit had hit the fan. There was no need to get worked up. I spent my free time transcribing the recording on my phone from the night of the zombie walk. I won't say I looked like a saint, but it was obvious that Colin and Rocky had clearly ignored my warnings. Taking advantage of the computers at the hotel, I logged into my email account. My inbox was flooded with emails from Colleen's extended entourage and her family. There were a few emails from my family members that I responded to. On Tuesday, I sent my transcripts to my divorce attorney. He asked Colleen to serve the divorce petition on his house. It was quite possible that someone would have to read it to Colleen. The reason for my warnings was that eye paint, when activated by exposure to ultraviolet light, may cause permanent eye damage. The warning was bolded on the eye paint label and on the blood cream label. The labels were photographed by me. The photos were attached to the transcript of the conversations. The product is illegal to sell in the States, but easy to get overseas. Rocky was so proud of himself for finding that thing. Ignorance isn't always bliss, is it? Arrogance can be very costly. Epilogue. Colin and Rocky are legally blind. Both can sense shapes and light, but neither of them can ever enjoy the beautiful smile of their little girl. With any luck, they'll get a cornea transplant. Colleen's parents are caring for her and raising the child. Rocky pays child support. Since I didn't sign the birth certificate and the private investigator's report clearly indicated paternity fraud, I was safe when the DNA test turned out to be expensive for Rocky. Should I have acted more decisively? Tough question. I never went back from punching them in the face. That's got to be worth something. Sure, I could have sent a pictorial postcard to Colleen. That would be pretty mean, but maybe I'm wrong. After all, she'd have to see the postcards, wouldn't she? As the rules of lit demanded, I found a young, single, sex-starved hottie who immediately fell in love and went to bed with me. Yeah. However, there is one nerdy girl at my new job that I seem to be fascinated by. Nerds are like magnets. It's like we repel each other. Mary Bartlett wipes her eyes and takes a deep breath. It's been a rough hour. I try to leave her with some comforting words. You know, Mary, some people just aren't cut out for marriage. They make vows, they say the words, but it just isn't there in their hearts. She nods and tries to smile. How about you take some friendly advice from an old man who's been around the block a few times already? There are plenty of men in the world. You're young and attractive. The main problem you're going to face is trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. You want to take your time, find yourself anew, and then let a good man find out what a wonderful person you really are. She smiles and gets up to leave. Can I give you a hug? Now I had to smile. Yes, but my wife has a strict one-hug limit. She smiles even wider, and I get a wonderful hug from a woman who is just beginning to heal. I close the door as she leaves, pour myself another coffee, and settle back into my chair. Without a doubt, Mary will be the highlight of my day. She has everything but good taste in men and a healthy self-esteem. We will work on both. I make a few more marks in Mary's file and see who's next. Ah yes, the Smiths. It's 5 minutes to 11, and my last session before lunch is waiting for me outside. It's another court-ordered counseling session. When are these judges going to realize you can't impose therapy? You can't lock a married couple in a room and force them to listen to each other if they don't want to listen. If I have 1 out of 10 successful couples who go through court-mandated counseling decide they want to stay married, then I'm having a good year. Give me a divorced spouse any day. I can help them. I open the folder. Let's see, John and Charlotte Smith. Court-ordered pre-divorce counseling. He filed a petition. That's not good. Men tend to follow through no matter what. Women come with hope. Men come with determination. He's been talking to his friends, so he's already got a script. I need to find a way to get him to open up. So, old boy, get your belts on and get ready for battle. I open the door to my outer office and say, John, Charlotte, are you ready? They get up and walk toward me. It's weird. Charlotte's face has determination written all over it, and his face has sadness. It's not what I expected. I invite them in and they sit down on the couch together. That's a good sign. Usually the man wants to sit in a separate chair. We settle in and I take a breath to give them time to look around the room. They need to get comfortable before we can do anything useful. When they seem to be settled, I ask, So I see that Mr. Smith has filed for divorce and Mrs. Smith is asking for counseling. Mr. Smith, may I call you John? Yes, that's fine. You can call me David or Dr. Phillips. I'd be happy to have either one. John just nods. John, why don't you start first? Why are you filing for divorce? I can't live like this. I've tried, but I can't, and I won't. It's not what I signed up for, and I don't see any alternative other than divorce. Could you be a little more specific? What exactly is it that you can't accept? She's cheating on me. I married her to build a life together. I'm not going to be just one of many. It's not many, asshole. It's just one. Charlotte seemed to find her voice. All right. Okay, Charlotte, why don't you explain to me what's going on? I couldn't tell whether she was taking a pause to gather her thoughts or to suppress her anger. Then she said in a very controlled voice, "The old boyfriend came back to town about 6 months ago and we met up again. It wasn't planned, it just happened that way. He was my first. We were a couple all through high school, and when he left for college, I was devastated. I met John about 2 years later and I forgot about my boyfriend." John interrupts. "And here's the other thing. She won't even tell me his name." "Okay, John, we'll take turns. Charlotte, go ahead." "Well, like I said, we're reunited." "What do you mean reunited?" As if I didn't know, I needed her to explain. "We went out to lunch to talk about old times and catch up. You know, stuff like that." And we had a good time, so later we went out to lunch again." It was just lunch? She just doesn't want to talk about it. She stares at her shoes for a while and then replies, "At first? And then?" With her, it's like I'm pulling teeth. I feel like a damn dentist. Later, we went to dinner. "And you invited John to join you?" She scoffed at the question. This was a woman who had no respect for her husband. "Why? He doesn't know Bar—" She almost said his name, but stopped herself. "So you and Bar—" I couldn't help myself. "So you and Bar went out to dinner alone. Did you leave your husband at home, or did you go when he was out of town?" "The first time he was out of town. And the second time? I told him I was running late for work. So I'm dealing with duplicity, deceit, disrespect, and, I bet, infidelity." I make a mental note to thank the judge. "Have you done this before?" She seems interested in the carpet at this point and doesn't answer. Not answering is a pretty clear answer, so I move on. "So, why don't we cut to the chase? Charlotte, are you cheating on your husband?" This pisses her off. When she doesn't answer, he cuts in. "You're damn right I am. She's admitted to it. Can you believe it? She's decided she deserves to have 2 husbands and wants to split her time between us. I told you you'd still be number 1 to me. We'll live together. We'll grow old together. I just want to spend the night together sometimes. Is that so much to ask?" "Yes," he hissed. "And fuck you." "Well, maybe if you were better at it, I wouldn't need him." All right, you two, take 5. I said it as much to reassure myself as to silence them. What a bitch. I took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Why don't we cut to the chase, huh? I'd like to spend 15 minutes with John, and then 15 minutes alone with Charlotte. Then we'll get back together and see where we stand. Can we do that? Charlotte looks annoyed, but she agrees. She gets up and closes the door behind her, and I can turn my attention to John. "Okay, John, explain it to me in order." As he speaks, I watch him. He's of medium build, not tall but not short either, not strong but not weak either. He speaks in a straightforward, calm voice that doesn't hide his pain. He doesn't seem dangerous to anyone, but he doesn't seem docile either. "Well, anyway, it's just like I said. She's having an affair with her ex-boyfriend, and she wants to divide her time between us. I don't know if she's reliving her high school years, or if she just thinks she deserves more, but I won't do it. I made a commitment, and I've kept it. I thought we were building a life together, and now she wants this and that. No, I will not live like this. It's all or nothing. Either she's my permanent wife or no wife at all." "And you can accept a divorce if that's the way it is?" "I prefer it." He leans back in his chair to catch his breath. She sat me down and told me how it was going to be. She said she knew I loved her and wanted her to be happy, so I had to get over my resentment and let her have it. Then she said that if I didn't accept it, she would rake all the coals out of me in the divorce. Fine. I could count on her blowing up if things didn't go her way. "I assume you have a good lawyer?" "Yes." "And what did he say?" "He said it's a 50-50 estate. Since we don't have kids yet, it'll be a clean break." "So what do you want?" "I wanted a wife and a partner, and I got a damn cheater. I lived alone before, and I can live alone again. All I know is that I'm not going to sit at home while she does some other guy. And I'm not going to live in one of those damn open marriages. That's not me. I can't live like that." I leaned forward and said in a conspiratorial tone, "You want to know something?" He nodded. Most people can't, and shouldn't. John, for most people, marriage is a commitment to work on the relationship, and it works best when both people are pulling in the same direction. It's not a contract for unlimited sex. It's a promise to take care of each other. Life takes its toll on a marriage, and it is the job of the couple to cherish the relationship. When the going gets tough, we look for what is of value in the other person and hold on to that. People change, and we have to change with them, but we have to do it without forgetting the commitment and why we made it. So you think I should call off the divorce? Is that what you want to do? Honestly, no. Then don't. I'm not saying you should accept whatever changes she throws at you. If you could accept change and negotiate a new relationship, that would be a different matter. It seems to me that you can't, and she's not being realistic when she expects you to accept a new relationship when you had no say in forming it. So what I'm saying is that she needs to go back to what she originally promised or accept the end of your marriage. At this point, John shook his head. She's not going to do that. Yes, I suspect you're right, but I'll give it a try and see what happens. I suppose I should be glad we don't have children yet. That remark struck me to the core. John, most of my practice is working with adults who still carry the pain of their childhood. When things like this happen and children are involved, it's not for nothing that the courts place the greatest emphasis on the well-being of the children. They can't process what is happening and they struggle with it. They take it personally and blame themselves. Whether you divorce or stay together, the chaos your wife has wrought will haunt them for the rest of their lives. You are young, you have time to start a family, and believe me, there are plenty of good women in the world who would find you a great catch. I could tell that John was listening, really listening, and thinking through everything we were saying. There was nothing complicated about John. He knew his opinions and shared them honestly. He was a classic example of what you see is what you get. Afterward, we talked for a few more minutes about life after divorce, and John promised to meet with me if things didn't work out. When we had discussed everything that needed to be discussed, I escorted John out and invited Charlotte in. So, Charlotte, I had a very productive conversation with John. To cut to the chase, let me ask you, are you going to maintain a sexual relationship with this other man? She hesitated for a long time and finally looked me in the eye. Yes. Do you really think that's fair to your husband? I will be there for him. When you're not with another man, it will only be one night a week, maybe two, and sometimes weekends. John will be fine. I'll still give him all he can handle. Oh, great. Another woman who thinks she has a magical body that no man can refuse. You know, Charlotte, it's not just the sex you give him that matters to most men. The sex you give someone else diminishes what you give your husband. He'll be fine. He works hard enough at night as it is. Why does he work nights? We're saving for a house. So he's working overtime to earn money to buy a house for the two of you to share? Well, he'll never agree to the three of us sharing it. I know that. She laughed at her own joke. What the hell, you stupid cow? I should have pulled myself together and not telegraphed my thoughts. Charlotte, I have to tell you that I don't think John can take it. It's just his little male ego. He'll get over it. It's only 1 or 2 nights a week, and every other night I'll rock his world. He gets me 5 out of 7 nights, or at least 4. That's more than half. I don't hear the bar. I don't hear my boyfriend complaining. She cut her husband's time short with each statement. Your boyfriend didn't make vows to you. He didn't promise to build a life with you. That's a different matter. What happened to the till death do you part? Vow? I'm not leaving. I'm not ending the marriage. I'm still by his side. 4 or 5 days a week and a few weekends. What about leaving everyone else behind? Did you forget that part? No one believes that anymore. Besides, I'm not moving in with my friend. I'm just spending time with him. And having sex with him. She didn't have an answer for that. We talked some more, but she was adamant and unyielding. There was no way to fix the situation, but I decided to try. John had already scrapped the idea, but it seemed worth considering. Charlotte, would you agree to John having a girlfriend on the side and spending a few nights every week at her place? I expected her to be angry at the suggestion if my diagnosis was correct, but the flash of almost fury surprised me. I see what you're doing. You're trying to paint me as a hypocrite. Well, he doesn't need some whore on the side. I'll still give him what he needs. Sounds like he needs his own wife exclusively. He'll be fine, and he doesn't need some damn whore on the side to fill in for him. Well, there you go. As I suspected, it wasn't a level playing field in Charlotte's world. I brought John back into the hall, and he took his seat next to Charlotte again. John, Charlotte, I've talked to both of you. I've listened to you, and I think it's more than clear. Charlotte, you have an inflated sense of self-worth that has caused you to destroy your marriage. I think you have a shallow understanding of relationships and strong narcissistic tendencies, and I think you are essentially incurable. You will destroy every marriage you have. We can work for years, and you will never change. If looks could kill. Then I turned to John. John, I'm going to recommend that the judge grant the divorce. This marriage can't be fixed, and frankly, it's toxic for you. If you want, I'd be happy to meet with you and help you get through the divorce and start a new life where you can find happiness and a partner you can trust. It's up to you, but I'd be happy to help if you want me to. John quickly agreed. I couldn't help but notice the mixture of relief and sadness reflected on his face. This was a good man who had bad taste in women. I couldn't fix her, but I could help him. Charlotte, on the other hand, was spitting nails. I was promised 10 sessions. You were supposed to change his mind and make John realize he had to become a man and get with the program. Charlotte, I'm afraid your program is not John's program, and what you want is not suitable for his mental health. If you change your mind and want to return to a more traditional marriage... Thank you very much. My lawyer is going to file a complaint with the judge. I'll make sure he never sends anyone to you again. Oh, calm down, my heart. Charlotte, I've been doing this for a long time. You can make any complaints you wish. My decision stands. Charlotte skipped out of the room, and I felt as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. What about you, John? Are you going to be okay? John thought for a moment. Yes, I'll be fine. I'd like to take you up on your offer to meet. Things are really crazy right now, but I think when the smoke clears, I might have some questions. I didn't want him to wait. I just so happen to have some free time next week. John smiled. Why don't you come back and we can talk some more? John agreed, stood up, and shook my hand. Walking him to the door, I said, And John, don't do anything stupid. Charlotte isn't done yet. You have to stay calm and do what's right for you. If she changes her mind, which I think is unlikely, then all three of us can be together again. Otherwise, you and I will talk and help you work through this. Walking out of the house, John looked lighter than walking in. I need to remind myself that this job brings surprises, and these two were a big surprise. I went back to my desk, took a few notes, and thought about the last session and the rest of the morning. Playing matchmaker between two patients isn't exactly ethical, but I kept thinking that John and Mary would make a cute couple in the future. Maybe I'll schedule a group session sometime. It wouldn't be my fault if it worked out for them. I reached into the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out my lunch. What a treat. This is what marriage is supposed to be, and it's these little daily chores that keep a relationship going. My wife made me a meatloaf sandwich and pasta salad, and my wife makes the best meatloaf ever. I picked up the phone and dialed her number from memory. Hi, honey. How was your day? You won't believe the case your brother sent me this time. June Clausen and I, Brian Walters, married right out of college after a 3-year affair. Although we graduated the same year, I was 3 years older than June because I had served in the Peace Corps for 2 years before going to college. Although both families were happy with our choice of partner, perhaps the happiest was my mother-in-law, Cheryl. Cheryl was especially happy because not only did she seem to like me, but my affair with June and our subsequent engagement, wedding preparation, and wedding allowed her to experience all of this indirectly, as she had never had that experience herself. Cheryl became pregnant as a teenager and had a very difficult time becoming a single mom, largely because her jealously religious parents effectively disowned her. A few years later, when she was 21, she married a much older man, just to have some financial security to provide for June. Cheryl never had a romance, a full-blown engagement, or even anything more than a modest wedding, as her husband Sam Clausen had been married before and wanted something simple. Sam is a decent guy and took good care of Cheryl and June, but he was as boring as standing water and as romantic as a doorknob. I, for my part, always liked Cheryl. Since she's only 11 years older than me, I don't really look at her as a typical mother-in-law, more like a young aunt. In fact, she's just as good-looking as her daughter, though 3 inches shorter than June, with green eyes instead of blue and not as sensual. Her pretty face usually has a dazzling smile on it, and she's very kind. For a pretty girl like her, she is shy and always wears conservative clothes. Perhaps this is ingrained in her because of her past, including her parents constantly calling her a slut. June and I had been married for 4 years when Sam died of a heart attack. It wasn't really a surprise because of his lifestyle, but Cheryl took it hard. I settled Sam's estate for Cheryl, gave her a shoulder to cry on, and even more than June, included her in our lives so that combined with the charity work she was doing, Cheryl stayed busy. The one thing she didn't want help with or even discussion about was that she didn't date. There were literally dozens of guys I knew, some much younger, who wanted to date her, but she had no interest. Shortly after my 6-year wedding anniversary, I realized I was in the standard situation of the clueless husband being cheated on by a conniving wife. I may have been clueless, but I wasn't indecisive. When June's cheating was confirmed, I moved out of our apartment into an extended stay motel and immediately split all of our finances. I believe June really did love me, but lost her way and didn't consider her short-term affair with someone she supposedly had no emotional attachment to as serious. She accused me of overreacting. I know that June confided in Cheryl. I never called her mom or anything like that, just Cheryl, and asked her to stand up for her. I know this because 3 days after I moved out of our apartment, Cheryl visited me at an extended stay motel. When she knocked on the door, I was surprised to see her, but considering how kind she had always been to me and how much I liked her, I invited her in. We sat down on the couch next to each other, and she took my hand. "I'm so sorry, Brian. I think you know I didn't raise June that way." "I know, Cheryl," I replied, squeezing her hand. "You've always impressed me as a moral person. You've overcome the bumps in life's road, and June's actions have nothing to do with you." "How are you holding up?" she asked with a tear in one eye. "I'm fine. It was a shock, but I've never been indecisive, so I took the bull by the horns and moved out. I'll probably be in pain for a long time, but I'll get over it." "Is there any chance you can forgive June and take her back?" "I don't see how I can do that, especially since she thinks I'm overreacting. It doesn't occur to her how much she's hurt me." I had a tear in my eye this time. We talked for an hour, and not just about June, but about other things. When she got up to leave, she hugged me. Longer than she should have, considering she was still my mother-in-law. And as soon as she broke contact, she said seriously, looking me in the eye, "I hope your divorce from June won't mean your divorce from me." "Cheryl, there will always be a place in my heart for you." After Cheryl left, I felt better. By advocating for my daughter, she reaffirmed that I had a right to feel the way I felt, didn't try to pressure me, and acted like a true friend, not a mother-in-law. That is, I felt better about myself until I went to bed that night. I woke up in a sweat from a very, very inappropriate dream. I filed for divorce due to irreconcilable differences a week after I moved out of our apartment and notified the landlord that I was no longer responsible for the rent. June was very upset. I couldn't understand why she was so upset. What did she think I should have done? At that point, she had known me for 9 years, and I had never in any way misrepresented myself to her. June and her lawyer tried many tactics, including seeking counseling, so things didn't go smoothly for the first 3 months. I was in a bit of shock at the time, but I didn't back down from my principles. I probably would have taken it harder if 2 of my single male friends hadn't taken it upon themselves to encourage me, and Cheryl called me every week not only to see how I was doing, although she always expressed concern about that, but with uplifting stories, mostly from her charity work. We also had lunch once a month, at which time she was always in high spirits. The paperwork had been stale for about 3 months, and so at 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon, we had a preliminary hearing before a justice of the peace. June had requested counseling, but my attorney was able to successfully rebut this by showing pictures of June going to lunch with George at least twice since the divorce papers had been filed. George was the very co-worker with whom she was having an affair. While she emphatically and tearfully stated that she had not had any sexual contact with him since I left, the fact that she had not distanced herself from him caused the judge to deny her request for compulsory counseling. Everyone at the hearing knew this was probably the funeral bell for a marriage that would likely be dissolved in 3 months. On Tuesday, Cheryl called into work. It was unusual for her to call me at work, but I was always glad to get her calls. After an initial exchange of pleasantries, she cut to the chase. "You can probably guess, Brian, that June called me yesterday after the hearing, very upset, since it looks like the divorce is coming up in a few months. Is that what you think, too?" "Yes, Cheryl, I do. I'm very sad about it, but I have to move on. My attorney feels that we will be able to properly settle all the money issues, so a final judgment is expected in about 3 months. I thought you might be sad, so let me take you out to dinner on Friday. It wouldn't be humiliating for you to go out to dinner with your soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, would it? If you're uncomfortable, I can wear a mask. I managed to get a chuckle out of that." "No, that would be fine. And no, you don't need to wear a mask. I just don't think I'd be very good company." "I'll feed you some good food, and you'll feel better. I know you're not a very good cook. So what time should I pick you up on Friday?" I grinned, since not a very good cook was more of a compliment. "I'll pick you up or meet you at the restaurant." "Absolutely not. It's my treat. Don't argue. I'll pick you up, say 7 p.m. "Okay, agreed. Tuesday night, I had another very disturbing dream. I'm going to have to see a psychiatrist if they continue. To my shock, not surprise, but shock, when Cheryl knocked on my apartment door at 7:02 Friday night, she wasn't dressed in the conservative clothes she always wore. She was wearing a stylish deep-neck blouse, a short skirt, 3-inch heels to match the skirt, light makeup — she almost never wears makeup — that emphasized her charming emerald green eyes, and a new hairstyle that made her pretty face even prettier. She certainly didn't look 43, more like 30. Cheryl stared at me with concern on her face. "Wow, you dressed so beautifully," I said as my jaw started working again. "Thank you," she replied, clearly relieved by my words. "The restaurant is pretty upscale, and I didn't want to look like I didn't belong there." "Is that a new outfit?" Yeah. I bought it and a few other things this week. I thought it was time to stop wearing the old-fashioned clothes I've always worn." Cheryl went to a restaurant that happened to have a dance floor as well. Unfortunately, as she was driving, her skirt went up to her hip. I had never seen her thighs before and chided myself for thinking, that looks slim. Dinner was enjoyable, and Cheryl's optimistic demeanor was contagious, so much so that I almost forgot about the nasty divorce. It was unusual, however, how Cheryl drank alcohol. Usually she only has 1 glass of wine when she goes out to dinner. This evening she bought a bottle for 2, but since I rarely drink and only had 1 glass, she finished the rest. After dinner, she lured me to the dance floor. The only times I danced with her were at June's reception and wedding, and a couple nights after Sam died when June and I took her out. She turned down a lot of offers from other guys to dance then. She was a pretty plain step dancer, back then. Now she was a firecracker. After 6 or 7 dances, we took a break. She went to the bathroom and I took a table. When she came back, I asked, "How did you learn to dance like that?" I pride myself on being a good dancer, for a guy, but she was clearly better than me. I said, "I've been taking lessons once a week for most of the last year," she smiled. "Did I do okay?" "You were close to being the best dancer there, and you sure looked up to a lot of guys," I grinned. "Oh, I didn't," she blushed. Just then, as if on cue, a guy came up to us and asked me if I would mind if he danced with my date. A little taken aback, I realized that from the way Cheryl looked, people could easily mistake her for my date. When I regained my composure, I said, "That's up to my mother-in-law." He looked very embarrassed. Cheryl slapped me on the arm and said with a smile, "He's joking. However, since this is only our second date, I don't want to disappoint him, especially since some hot young thing will snatch him up. So thank you so much for your invitation, but I decline it. However, if he dumps me, I'm sure I'll see you here again." She laughed, placing her left hand on mine. The guy smiled, then kissed her right hand and walked away. "You're a pretty damn cute girl," I told her. At that moment, a waiter came over to our table and placed something that looked like a Bloody Mary in front of her and a soda in front of me. "We didn't order," I started to say when she interrupted me. "I ordered on the way back from the bathroom. Now have a drink and then let's go back to the dance floor." I'd never seen her drink hard liquor before, but she quickly managed a Bloody Mary, and I finished my soda, and we went back to the dance floor. After another 5 or 6 dances, Cheryl leaned over to me and said, "I think I've reached my limit, both in terms of alcohol and dancing. Will you drive me home? I shouldn't be driving. I may be drunk. I don't know because I've never been drunk before. But I'm pretty sure I can't drive without crashing into something." I took the car from the valet while Cheryl went to the bathroom again, and then drove to her house. She lived in a small, elegant house in a close, fairly fashionable suburb. Sam had left her some pretty substantial money, which was about 8 miles from my apartment. I can just take a cab to get home. Cheryl was very chatty in the car, repeating several times, I wrote it off as drinking, that she hoped I had a good time and forgot about her cheating daughter for a while. When we got to her house, she was fiddling with her garage keys. I took them from her and unlocked the door and helped her in. As soon as she got inside, she closed the garage door and clearly slid the deadbolt shut. She then pulled something out of her purse and held it out to me. "I took these off in the bathroom as a souvenir for you," she giggled. It was her panties. I'm sure I blushed, but it was nothing compared to what followed. After she handed me her panties and I silently opened and closed my mouth, I was stunned, and she suddenly dropped her skirt. When I said, "What are you?" she literally ripped off her blouse, undoing the buttons and exposing her bra underneath. I had always imagined that underneath her old-fashioned clothes was a beautiful body, so here it was. She actually had a stunning body that made every woman in the world envious. Cheryl walked over to me, and as she covered my shoulders, neck, and cheeks with short kisses, she continued to murmur something. I don't think I remembered or understood all the words she muttered, but some that I remembered were, "I'm sure you haven't slept with anyone in months, and you need someone to blow your brains out." That statement stuck in my head, partly because I'd never heard her say, "hook up" before. "I'm as horny as you are." "I've been sexually unsatisfied for decades, and I need you to do something about it. Pretend I'm just a slut you picked up at a bar and not your mother-in-law." While she was saying this, my mind couldn't help but go back to the 2 dreams that had been bothering me so much over the past few days. In those dreams, I was ripping Cheryl's clothes off and then having her until she was senseless. In this fantasy, her body was only half as good as it was in real life. As soon as Cheryl put her hands down, I lost my temper. As I carried her to the bedroom, I remember that the first thought in my head was that I was really going to regret this in the morning. However, I was sure that, at least not tonight. When we finally unhooked, I was physically and emotionally drained. There was no way I was going to get up and leave, especially with her saying, "Please stay the night, Brian. I've never woken up with someone I love before." Love? What the fuck? I had to push that statement to the back of my mind for a while. When she rested her head on my shoulder, I quickly fell into a deep sleep. I've been known to have a few erotic dreams at night. I don't usually remember the dreams, but this time I remembered them the next morning. They all involved me either blowing Cheryl's brains out or making love to her. My last dream turned out to be a reality. "Thank you for the best night and morning of my life," Cheryl said, her enchanting green eyes fixed on mine with laser-like intensity. "Is this some weird world where a hot chick screwed me twice with world-class sex and then thanked me?" I grinned. Really hot chick?" she stammered. "Hell yeah." We had a pleasant conversation. Pleasant because I hadn't gotten down to the nitty-gritty of sex with my mother-in-law yet, but I knew that eventually it would be like a sword of Damocles hanging over my head. Finally, she smiled and said, "Let's take a shower together," followed by a quick kiss. "Sounds like fun," I replied. But just before I started to roll off the bed, she grabbed me and tearfully said, "I'm sorry for saying I love you. Despite the weight of my emotions, having her and then having to deal with her saying she loved me and then telling me she was sorry for saying it, we had a fun shower together." Since this was a time of firsts, I got the distinct impression that this was the first time she had showered with a man, and she was as excited as a puppy. Cheryl was only wearing a short robe as she made breakfast. She was literally singing to herself, doing it with a smile glued to her face. We chatted sweetly over breakfast. She looked so charming and happy. In fact, with the exception of my wedding to June, I think it was the happiest I'd ever seen her. After breakfast, I insisted she get dressed while I did the dishes. She changed into jean shorts, another nice blouse, and casual flat-soled shoes, and I was struck again by how young she looked, and how wide her hips were. She drove me to my apartment, and when we got there, she asked, "Maybe you could show me your apartment. I've never seen it." "Sure," I replied. She seemed a little anxious at first, but I couldn't say for sure. Then, when we got to the bedroom, it didn't take long since the apartment wasn't that big, she sighed heavily and put her hands on my chest. "Brian, could you please fuck me in your bed?" she asked timidly. Somehow, the combination of her vulnerability, how sweet she was, how great the sex in her house was, and the impact of my recent dream of fucking her turned me into an animal. We slept together in my bedroom. "Did you like it?" "Yes, of course, but I'm not sure I can take it on a regular basis. I'm completely exhausted, and I feel like my spine has turned to jelly," she laughed. I rubbed her back, and then she rubbed mine. We must have been in bed for about an hour when she asked, "Am I interfering with your plans for the day?" I guess my plans for the day changed after that night. Let's go to the movies tonight." Her smile was as bright as a lit Christmas tree. "Instead, why don't you come over for dinner and we can watch a movie on my big screen TV?" "That sounds appealing," I grinned. "What time should I come over?" "How about 5:30? You can help me chop the vegetables. I'm making a terrible roast." When Cheryl left, I took a moment to reflect. "What the fuck are you doing, asshole?" I asked myself. "It's your goddamn mother-in-law. How fucked up is that, not to mention the effect it would have on her relationship with her daughter if June ever found out? Besides, she's probably already in love with you, and do you really want to hurt her even though she's the best woman you've ever met in your life?" Thinking about that last statement made me cover my face with my hands and mutter, "Oh shit, and you dreaming about her." After my thoughts remained in turmoil for the next half hour, I finally decided to throw the can on the road. "I'll just go with the flow this weekend and come to some conclusion later." The competing factions in my brain finally agreed. Throwing the can on the road did indeed lead to a wonderful weekend. We had fun cooking dinner together on Saturday night. We watched half a movie before we slept together on the couch in her office. We actually made love in her bed Saturday night. We went to the health club she is a faithful member of to work out late Sunday morning, and in the afternoon we went camping in the nearby wilderness. We also had enough energy to make love Sunday night in her bed. When I woke up Monday morning, I was the most serene I had ever been in my life. That serenity was shattered shortly after breakfast when Cheryl asked if we could talk before I left for work. I had brought a change of clothes with me. "Brian, could you please listen to what I have to say before you answer or ask questions?" she asked in a timid voice. "This is really hard for me, and I should just say what I have planned without interrupting." "Okay," I smiled, squeezing her hands. After a long sigh, she started and didn't stop for 15 minutes, barely breathing. So tense was she, and not faltering on her words, but expressing herself quite clearly. Her first words were, "I have loved you from the first time I met you, and you are the only man I have ever loved." After explaining this, she went on to say that she knew a long-term relationship with me was impossible because she was 11 years older. Her relationship with June would be ruined. She would never be able to give me the children I wanted, and she knew I could never love her the way she loved me. She concluded by saying, "I will, however, accept whatever I can get from you. I will always be available to you." I was stunned. I remained silent as she spoke. When she finished, she said, "Go to work. I apologize for putting so much on you." I kissed her passionately. Then I looked into her enchanting eyes and said, "I have a lot of things to think about. Please don't be upset if we don't see each other for a couple of weeks. Although I'm usually a determined person, this weekend has completely turned my brain upside down and I need to organize it." She smiled, gave me a quick kiss on the lips, stood up, picked me up, and then playfully pushed me out the door. I wasn't exaggerating when I said the mess in my head. For the next 2 weeks, whenever my mind wasn't fully occupied with work or some other activity, it turned to Cheryl, June, sex, and anxiety. It didn't help that almost every night I dreamed I was not only having Cheryl, but making love to her, traveling to exotic places with her, snuggling up to her, and in one disturbing dream, she and I had a dozen children. Until I saw Cheryl, I called her every day just to chat for 5 or 10 minutes. She never pressed me or got serious during our phone conversations, except to say in passing that the last time she saw her daughter, June asked if she was seeing anyone because, "You look as happy as I've ever seen you, Mom." Cheryl just said nothing. 2 weeks later, I invited Cheryl over for dinner on Saturday night. She happily accepted. Although I really hadn't planned it, I was just trying to see how compatible we were outside of bed. I ended up staying the night in her bed and making love twice. I knew I was actually falling in love with her, but because of the 11-year age difference, and mostly because she was still my mother-in-law, I couldn't show my inherent determination. Our relationship at least survived the final divorce. Afterward, Cheryl took June on a week-long cruise. When Cheryl returned, she said that the cruise had helped June a great deal and that her anger toward me for throwing her to the curb had diminished and almost completely disappeared, and that June seemed to have realized that she had only herself to blame. "Did she ask about your love affair?" I inquired. After a long pause, Cheryl replied, "Yes. How was it?" Another long pause followed. I told her that I was happy, that I didn't know if I would be in a long-term relationship, and that I had no plans to introduce her to a boyfriend anytime soon. My indecision might have continued for many more months, even years, had a catastrophic event not occurred. I had correctly concluded that I loved Cheryl, and we were together at least 3 nights a week and talked on the phone every day. Even though I enjoyed being married to June for 5+ years, but to be honest with myself, my relationship with Cheryl was much better than my relationship with June. Yes, despite her age, Cheryl had been sexually inexperienced the first night we spent together. But now she was not only experienced, but as expressive, loving, adventurous, and energetic as could be. A catastrophic event hit me when Cheryl called my office early Friday afternoon. We had plans to go to a play that night and then, of course, play hide-and-seek in bed that night. She was in tears and begged me to come to her house as soon as possible. I was able to get to her house a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When Cheryl opened the door, it was obvious that she had been crying and immediately threw herself into my arms. I let her cry on my shoulder for a few minutes and then carried her to the couch in the living room. "Okay, tell me what's going on," I said, holding her hands. "I swear I didn't plan this," she sobbed, and then continued in sentence fragments such as, "I didn't know it was possible. Please don't hate me. You can just go away." I had no idea what she was talking about. I finally calmed her down, squeezed her hands, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Stop. Tell me what's on your mind. I have no idea what you're talking about." She sniffed her nose, took a deep breath, and said, "I'm 7 weeks pregnant." This was news to me. We had talked to her about this before, and she was sorry she couldn't get pregnant because she knew I wanted kids. She'd tried with Sam, but it hadn't worked out. And even earlier, some doctor had told her after she'd given birth to June years ago that for some reason she no longer remembered, she probably couldn't get pregnant again. Since I was stunned, I didn't say anything for a while, but I'm sure my eyes widened. Cheryl took this to mean that I was upset and would now probably throw her overboard, and she started sobbing so hard that I thought I might need emergency medical attention. My mind suddenly cleared. I loved her more than I had ever loved anyone before. I really wanted at least one child. I didn't care if she was older than me. It was time to make a decision, and the decision was clear. I took her face in both hands and wiped the tears away with my thumbs. Stop crying, Cheryl. I want to ask you something. After repeating this about a dozen times, she finally stopped. I asked, "Will you make me the happiest man in the world and marry me?" Apparently, she didn't take it right away because I had to ask 2 more times before she understood my words, smiled, and cried out, "Yes!" Her tears dried up. We pressed against each other. I told her how much I loved her. She told me she had been the happiest woman for the last 6 months and was even happier now. Suddenly, we heard the front door open and, "Mom, are you in here?" We were like frightened rabbits as we turned at the sound and saw June walk into the living room. She was as startled as we were. June spoke first. "What are you doing here, Brian?" I couldn't answer. Suddenly, Cheryl's mouth snapped up words that I'm sure she didn't intend to say at that moment. "I'm 7 weeks pregnant with Brian's baby, and we're getting married." A slight smile appeared on June's face. She obviously thought it was a joke at first. When she saw how big my eyes were and saw my intimate embrace with Cheryl, the smile disappeared and my eyes began to glaze over. I immediately jumped up and caught her before her head hit the floor. I picked June up and carried her over to the couch that Cheryl had just vacated. Cheryl threw herself into the fray. She pulled out some smelling salts and a cold compress. Before using them, she turned to me and said, "I think it would be best if you left before she came to her senses." Then she asked with a smile, "Can we go shopping for wedding rings tomorrow?" "You bet," I replied, kissing her soundly. "I'll give the tickets for tonight's play to a friend. Just call me what time I should pick you up tomorrow." We kissed again and I left. I did give my tickets to a friend and his wife, who were happy to get them, and I even babysat their kids, a boy and a girl, as a workout. Ha, ha. We didn't go ring shopping on Saturday. Cheryl called me around noon and told me that June was staying the night and that they would probably need the rest of the weekend to get everything sorted out. I couldn't argue with her. I told her I loved her and we would go shopping when we could. Hey! Cheryl ended the conversation by telling me what she would do to me the next time she got me into bed. "Hopefully that will be Monday," she grinned before hanging up. I don't know everything Cheryl and June were talking about, of course. What I do know for sure is that Cheryl loved June as much as a mother can love a grown child, despite June's mistake with George, and that June and Cheryl had been a team for years before I met them. Cheryl told me that she was completely honest with June about her long-term feelings for me, that she never had any romantic or sexual contact with me until she knew for sure that my marriage to June was over. Cheryl said she realized how awkward our marriage would be for June, but Cheryl needed June in her life now as much as she did before. I have to hand it to June. While she herself was sad about the situation, she was happy for her mother, who she knew had never had true love before, and was happy to have a younger sister or brother. Although June and I were not going to be friends in the future, I made it clear to her that I held no grudge against her, that I would always treat her with respect, and that I had done nothing to hurt her. I just couldn't help but fall in love with Cheryl. Cheryl really turned me to ashes after a weekend, and another weekend later I moved into Cheryl's house. The only problem we had, if you could call it that, was that the pregnancy had increased Cheryl's already high libido. "I need to make up for 2 decades without real sex," was how she put it, and who was I to object? We continued to do it steadily until 8 months and a week into the pregnancy, at which point we had to put it off until 2 months after the birth of our beautiful little girl, Alicia. During our sexual interlude, Cheryl chirped, "Maybe June will take the slack for you." I nearly had a heart attack before she laughed. "Joking!" Then, pressing her 8-month pregnant body against me, she said, "No one will ever have you again. I would give my life for you." Cheryl and I were married in a simple ceremony 2 months before Alicia was born. We gave June the utmost respect. She was a bridesmaid. Although I completely forgave June, my approach to George, her lover, with whom Cheryl said June never had sex again after I began divorce proceedings, was different. I followed him electronically and even followed him occasionally for a day or two with the help of a private investigator. When I found out he was getting married, I sent his fiancée a complete dossier on his relationship with June when she was married to me and how it ruined our marriage. I was pleased to see that George's fiancée dumped him within a week of receiving my letter, and he soon moved to another city. After Alicia was born, we decided that we would like her to have a sibling. However, Another pregnancy for Cheryl, and right after Alicia, we didn't think it was desirable or safe. Since Sam had left her a lot of money, we harvested one of her eggs and hired a surrogate. When Alicia was 15 months old, the surrogate gave birth to our second and final child, a little boy we named Aaron. As I write this, my children are now 5 and 6 years old. I am more in love with Cheryl than I have ever been. I never imagined that a relationship could be this good and that we could maintain our sexual relationship with the intensity that we have. One more thing. June married a guy that Cheryl and I like, and she's due to give birth to a little girl next month. For a while, I tried to figure out what kind of relationship her daughter would have with our kids. I've given up. All I know is that Cheryl will love her granddaughter as much as she loves our children. Cheryl seems to have an infinite capacity to love. Can you keep yourself busy while I'm gone? Isn't there always? Karen and I are planning to visit Ridingers and the Green Dragon this week. I hope you have enough money on your credit card to handle that. As long as you stay away from diamonds, emeralds, and rubies, you'll be fine. We laughed a little at that. Both of our kids were gone, and being empty nurse, we were doing pretty well. Marcia had never worked. We discussed the possibility of her being employed after the children left, but never came to a consensus. She was content to keep the house in order and go to yard sales and flea markets. Her e-book was stocked with thousands of e-books. Her friend Karen collected cookie molds, coasters, and flat irons. Marcia was only interested in old jewelry. She had a large hand-carved walnut chest in which she kept all her treasures. The value was not in the gems, but in the design and craftsmanship of the pieces. She had done a lot of research and knew what she was doing. The chest was the most important item in her life. Each item had a story to tell. This week I was in Albuquerque. It was a routine trip and everything went according to schedule. It was Tuesday evening and I was waiting for a table at the Holiday Inn Express. "Excuse me, are you eating alone?" It was another clone. He was dressed like me, looked like me, and acted like me. All traveling businessmen are clones. "Yes, the usual. Would you like to join me?" "Sure. Kevin Martin, Kelso Plastics." I took his hand. "John Terrell, Nielsen Machine." We chatted lightly, studying the menu. "How long are you here for, Kevin?" "For a short time this time. I'm flying back to Philadelphia in the morning. I like it when I can finish early." "Interesting. I'm flying out of Philly too, but I'm afraid I'll have to finish a week." "What do you do, John?" "I sell, install, and maintain candy-making equipment. I work in King of Prussia for a company out of the Netherlands." "And you like it?" "Yes, I make good money. 2 kids are in school, and I have a nice apartment in Westchester." "Damn, what a coincidence. I live in Downingtown. Hell, we're neighbors, and I had to drive to New Mexico to meet you." "Are you married, Kevin?" "No, I was widowed about 10 years ago, but I have a steady girlfriend. What about yourself?" "Married 23 years and looking for another 23? Oh, John, let me show you what I found today. My girlfriend collects fashion jewelry. Every trip I bring something for her. I went a little overboard this time, but it's really nice." I was suddenly very interested in what he was going to show me. He pulled a purple Crown Royal bag from his jacket pocket and carefully dumped a silver necklace in the shape of a zucchini flower onto the table. "It's a Cyrillos turquoise, quite unique. She'll be crazy about it. A little pricey, but she's worth it." "That must be a special woman. How long have you been working with her?" "Almost 3 years now." "And marriage isn't a consideration here?" "No, that's the saddest part. She's already married and doesn't seem interested in changing that. I'm still working on her, and maybe if I keep trying, I'll get lucky." "I assume you've been in an intimate relationship?" "Yes, for 2 years now. We might even have an occasional sleepover." "Her husband doesn't mind?" "God, no, she's scared to death that he'll find out. I think that's what makes their relationship so exciting." "Kevin, you're a braver man than I am. I could never do something like this." "Trust me, she's worth it." Kevin and I finished our meal and said our goodbyes. He never noticed the connection between me and his girlfriend. I didn't ask for his card because I didn't want to give him mine. I flew home Friday on a red-eye flight. Marcia did her Saturday morning shopping, so she wasn't around when I arrived. I unpacked from my trip and just on a whim decided to check out the jewelry box. It had 3 drawers in the front and a lift-up lid. There was a false bottom under the bottom drawer. The zucchini flower necklace was still wrapped in the Crown Royal bag and neatly tucked away in a hidden spot. Along with it lay a beautiful emerald-cut ruby ring that I'd never seen before. I put everything back just as Marcia walked through the door. There was no doubt that as soon as Marcia saw me, she knew everything. Neither of us said anything other than the usual words, "glad to be home" and "glad you're home." I spent the morning doing yard work and the second half of the day sleeping. Marcia stayed away from me all day. Dinner was Chinese food. I asked her how the flea market hunt went, and she asked me how my trip to New Mexico went. We both lied to each other. The evening in front of the TV passed without incident. Sunday morning, Marcia said she was going to visit our oldest daughter, Claire, in Allentown. I was going to clean up the garage. I didn't clean the garage, but I did get all the finances in order. To keep the girls from taking on too many college loans, we refinanced the house. It was now underwater. Getting everything else organized wasn't difficult. I spent the evening looking through and re-evaluating my closet. I was mentally preparing for something, but I didn't know what. Before I went to bed, I checked the jewelry chest one more time. The necklace and ring were gone. When Marcia got home, I was already asleep in front of the TV. She covered me with a blanket and went to bed herself. I drove to King of Prussia in a daze. Fortunately, I had driven that road so many times in the last 15 years that it was like everything was on autopilot. I finished all my paperwork regarding the Albuquerque trip and headed to the main office. 30 minutes later, I received my assignment to Scheveningen. The main office was eagerly waiting for me. I was to head up the manuals and publications department. Perhaps I could have done the job here in the States, but I was better at it there. It was a week before I left. I had a small workload for the rest of the week. All I had to do was bring my deputy up to speed and finalize all the old projects. At home, I spent most evenings in front of the computer. I usually had to make excuses to my wife for working overtime, but now she didn't seem to care. It wasn't commented on in any way. We watched TV together a few times, but that was the end of it. I was dreading some sort of confrontation, but it never came. It was an interesting situation. She knew I knew what she was doing. I knew what she was doing, and I knew that she knew that I knew. And yet neither of us wanted to talk about it. Oddly enough, I didn't care. I wasn't angry. Wednesday afternoon, I spent my time at the lawyer's office. I was giving Marcia the house and half of the savings and checking account. It all added up to a little over $20,000. If she sold the house, the real estate commission would eat up all the equity. I figured she could keep the house if she could get Kevin to move in with her. If he didn't move in with her, the house would probably go back to the bank. I wouldn't let her get anything from my IRA or qualify for my company's retirement plan. While all of this was going on, I was amazed that I was keeping my cool. I wasn't angry, vindictive, or embittered. I felt a certain sense of relief. I don't know why. I did, however, feel the need for a little evil satisfaction. My plane left Philadelphia early Monday morning. I had arranged for my brother, Carl, to come down from Pottsville and drive me to the airport Sunday night. I planned to treat them to dinner at the Airport Marriott Hotel. I had reserved 2 rooms so we could all stay overnight. On Thursday, Marcia told me she was going with Karen to Lancaster to visit some antique stores. This gave me time to finish packing and getting ready. I was extremely selective, so unless she was very nosy, she would never notice me leaving. She never asked why I wasn't at work. On Friday, they threw a farewell party for me at work. It was nice to feel appreciated. Friday night, Marcia and I went to Red Lobster. Tensions still lingered, but we managed to get through dinner. Still no confrontation on either side. Saturday, Marcia did the usual shopping and I did the lawn. This would be the last time, so I was figuring out how I would get through the day. I didn't stop for lunch. My wife brought me a cold beer and a sandwich. After a light dinner, I fell asleep in the chair. Sunday morning, Marcia left early to spend the day with our youngest daughter, Lena, in Lebanon. It was time to wrap things up. Carl and his wife, Norma, showed up just after noon. I loaded all my belongings and then brought down Masha's cherished jewelry chest. The squash blossom necklace and ruby ring were still missing. Carl would keep the jewelry box in his possession until I told him otherwise. Just before I left, I called Kevin Martin. "Kevin, hi, this is John Terrell. How's it going?" There was a moment's pause. Fine, John. Are you by yourself?" "Kevin, I just wanted to tell you about the Cub Cadet lawnmower. It's a little outdated, but it still works well most of the time. If you're having trouble getting it started, just pull the plugs out and clean them. Then everything will be fine. There shouldn't be a problem with anything else." "All right, John. Why are you telling me this?" "Just trying to help. I have to go now, Kevin. Have a good weekend." Carl and Norma couldn't keep from laughing. "John, what the hell was that? Was it the same guy who slept with your wife?" "Of course it was. Can you imagine the conversations that phone call will cause? It's going to be hilarious." I set off for my new home early Monday morning and grinned the whole way. I still couldn't figure out why I wasn't upset about the whole situation. I thought the whole thing was a little funny. As the wheels of the airplane lifted off the ground, I felt a huge sense of relief spill over my body. In a moment, I was already working in my new office in Scheveningen. I rented a small cottage in Wassenaar and commuted to and from work on my new 10-speed bike. The company got me a new driver's license, but I preferred the bike. If the weather was bad, I could take the bus. 2 weeks later, I called Carl. I didn't know who else to turn to. "John, Marcia is obviously upset, but I have a feeling she saw something coming." Things were tense the last few weeks before I left. We never talked about it, but we both knew it was coming. "When did you talk to her?" "She called me last Tuesday. I think she was looking for her jewelry box, but she didn't say so directly. She kept talking about how you were supposed to call her to straighten things out. She got the divorce papers and got a lawyer to go over them. They're going to make a counteroffer or something. I know she said she doesn't want the house. My attorney has a power of attorney that I've already signed so she can either sell it or give it back to the bank. I don't care because I don't want or expect to get anything from him. I'll have him send it to an attorney." It was a funny conversation. She didn't apologize or feel the need to defend her act. At least to me. I felt no guilt or remorse. I thought breakups like that were supposed to be very emotional. You two are a couple of cold fish. "Carl, I can't explain it. I don't understand myself." "Oh, and one last thing. She said there's no way she'll agree to a divorce until she gets her jewelry back. If you happen to talk to her again, tell her there's no way she's getting her jewelry back until the divorce is final." Needless to say, the divorce proceedings did not go well. We fought over the terms for 6 months. She wanted half of my IRA and half of my company pension. She wanted me to pay the mortgage on the house she refused to sell or move out of. She wanted alimony. Big alimony. She was angry that I refused to give her the jewelry back. And Kevin Martin decided there was too much drama and decided to move on with his life. Since all of this started, I've avoided socializing with my daughters. I decided it was time to call Claire. "Dad, Lena and I spent the whole weekend with Mom. She told us everything. We understand why you left and none of us blame you for any of it. She's totally upset, but she's too proud to let you know that. She doesn't want a home. She's being a bitch about the divorce because she doesn't want it at all. We've convinced her it's inevitable, but she's having a hard time accepting it." "What can I do? I'm not going back to the old relationship." I don't think anyone expects that. However, she is lost as her boyfriend seems to have disappeared. She has no job skills and no job prospects. She doesn't pay her mortgage and has to spend the money you left her just to pay the utilities. Lena has offered to let her move in with her temporarily. You have to throw her a bone, Dad. The lawyer had no trouble negotiating with the bank to repossess the house. It cost me a few thousand, but it was worth it. Carl contacted 2 men and a truck and had Marcia move to Lebanon by the end of the week. The biggest problem was the extra furniture, which eventually had to be sold for pennies. I agreed to provide Marcia with fair child support, and she waived all other demands. The final stumbling block was the return of her jewelry chest. I agreed to this, but only with one final proviso. After paying a hefty VAT, I was able to collect the last parcel I had ever received from my wife. I carefully unwrapped it while sitting on the back patio. Inside the purple Crown Royal package was a beautiful squash blossom necklace. I didn't need it, but I felt it was symbolic. I spread it out on the table in front of me and picked up my phone. "Carl, give Marcia back her jewelry chest."